In today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a really cute and simple baby shower cake, or this could work for a birthday cake also. And we're going to start by creating a gift box from this round cake. I'm starting with 3 8-inch cake layers that I've gone ahead and filled and stacked, and I'm just going to frost it just like usual. So as you can see, I've already crumb coated the cake. I just chilled it in the freezer for about maybe 10 minutes to firm it up, and now I'm going in with the second layer of frosting. Okay, so now that I've added the second coat of frosting, and you can see I allowed the frosting to extend up past the top edge of the cake, and we'll clean that up later. But now I'm just going to go in and smooth things out as much as I can with the bench scraper. And what I like to do next, just to create an extra smooth finish, is I'm going to chill it in the freezer for about 10 minutes or so to firm everything up, and then we're going to come back and smooth over everything with a hot spatula. Also, if you'd like to, you can freeze the frosted cake even with this kind of messed up top edge, and then slice it off later once the buttercream is firm from being chilled. But if you'd rather clean it up first before chilling, just go in with your offset spatula and just drag from the edge of the cake to the center, and then take your spatula up and off of the cake and just clean off the excess every time. And so you can just take it around that way. Okay, so once this is chilled, we'll meet right back and do our finishing touches. Okay, so I've taken my cake back out of the freezer, so the frosting is nice and firm now. I ran my bench scraper under some very hot water, and so now I'm just going to go back over and just smooth over the little bumps and imperfections in the frosting to just give it a nice smooth finish. And I'll probably need to run this under the hot water again in just a second. I also wanted to show you what I mentioned before, which is that you can also just take a knife and slice away the excess frosting, and that gives you a nice sharp edge if you'd rather do it that way. I'm just going to continue just smoothing things out, and we'll meet back once we're ready to go on to the next step. Okay, so now I'm creating the lid for the top of the cake. I'm using 3 cake cardboards. These are 8-inch rounds, and I'm gluing them together. I'm gluing 3 together so that we'll have a slightly thicker lid, but it will still be fairly lightweight. So once you've glued all 3 rounds together, and I'm sure you could use foam core if you'd rather use that, but once you've glued them together, just place a weight on top until the glue has dried. So moving right along, I wanted to cover the top with fondant. So as you can see, I've rolled out some fondant. I've also lightly greased the top of our cake cardboard with a little vegetable shortening, and that's going to help the fondant to adhere. So here I'm just lifting up the fondant that I had rolled out. It was rolled to about 1/8 of an inch thickness, and just smooth over the top to get out any air bubbles and to help it to really adhere to that vegetable shortening surface. And then just cut away the excess. So just get rid of all of that bulky excess fondant, and then trim away with a sharp knife all around the edge. And then if you'd like to, if you have a fondant smoother, you could also use that to just kind of finish things off around the edges and make it extra smooth. So here I am wrapping a ribbon around the edge of the cake lid, or the cardboard lid, and that's going to hide that rough edge. So I just applied a little bit of glue to that first little bit of ribbon, just to get things started. And then I'm just going to wrap it around, and you can see I've got a straight pin that I'm going to use in just a second to secure it. My ribbon, because it's white, it was a little bit see-through, so I'm going to take my ribbon around 2 times. And then just fasten it in the back with a little pin, or you might have another glue that you like. My glue that I was using made the ribbon a little too transparent, so that's why I'm just using a straight pin instead. Okay, so now we have a really cute and simple lid. Now I am preparing some pink fondant with a little bit of Tylose powder. You could also use gum paste for this, but we're creating the bow. And our bow today is going to just be a mound of curls. You could use a classic bow if you'd rather do that, or a big loopy bow. We have video tutorials on those kinds of bows also, but the curly ones are fun and they're simple to do. You do want to, if you want any of the curls to stand straight up, you'll want to do these at least a day in advance. And here you can see I have one fat bubble tea straw, and I also have a thin drinking straw, just so that you can see the different sizes of curls I'm making. But I've lightly greased them with shortening, and I'm just wrapping around these strips of our fondant or gum paste. You can do them in different lengths, or if you wind up with some curls that are a little bit too long, they're very easy to break up and make shorter a little bit later. But I'm just making lots and lots of curls at this point, and I'm allowing them to dry on parchment. I've already made some that are already nice and dry. So we're going to go ahead and get started in building our bow. I've added a little bit of water to just sort of a blob of our fondant or gum paste. It's fondant with some Tylose kneaded into it, which makes it more like gum paste. And just knead in a little bit of moisture till it becomes pretty tacky and sticky. This is just an easy way to create a bow, because you can just gently push those dried pieces right into the soft fondant and it will adhere. So I'm starting with, I think it's easiest to start with a bottom row of curls and then kind of work your way up. And you can see I'm just gently sliding those curls off the straw. This one is still a little bit soft. This is one that hasn't been drying for long. And you can see it's set up enough that it's holding its shape, but it's just not completely stiff. And that's a nice look too. So you don't have to dry these for a day if you just want that soft kind of mound of curls. That works too. Here's a curl that has been drying for longer, and so it can stand up straight. So as you can see, I have my curls already done. My bow is just nice and big. And now I'm going in and creating some polka dots with a tip 12. I cut large polka dots and small. I decided to just go with the small size of polka dot, and I'm just attaching those with a little bit of Tylose powder mixed with a little bit of water, and that creates a nice, easy, edible glue. And I'm also applying these small polka dots to the cake. So you can see I'm just using a little dot of buttercream to attach them, and we'll just add them all the way around. So now it's time to create our cute teddy bears. We're making 3. This is fondant with a little Tylose kneaded into it, and I got this color of brown by using Americolor Ivory with a touch of chocolate brown kneaded into it. And now I'm using just a lighter shade for the mouth. So as you can see, I just had a small ball of fondant that I flattened, and now I'm pressing onto the head. And then for the ears, I'm using small little balls of fondant once again. Just roll it into a ball, slightly flatten it, and then just use the end of a paintbrush to create an impression. And then you can attach the ears with a little bit of Tylose glue, which is Tylose powder mixed with a little warm water, or piping gel would work well also. And we're just creating super simple, cute little teddy bears. You may want to do this step in advance. You could create the teddy bears weeks in advance if you'd like to. And I'm just using a little Tylose glue to attach the nose. And to create the little arms or legs, you can see I'm just creating a teardrop shape, which I flatten on the end. Okay, so once the head of the bear has dried, or at least the surface has dried, you can go in with an edible ink pen and just add the eyes. So I'm just doing just a small little dot for each eye. And also, I always think it's fun to add rosy cheeks. So I'm just using a dry paintbrush and some pink petal dust. And I'm giving our bears little rosy cheeks just for fun. Okay, so I couldn't decide at first if I wanted the bears to have mouths or not. I decided to go ahead and give them little mouths, but that's up to you. So I'm just using, again, an edible ink pen. This one is brown. And that's it. I think they look really, really sweet. Okay, and really quickly I wanted to show you how to create tissue paper for your gift cake. This is some thinly rolled fondant. It does have some Tylose powder kneaded into it so that it would firm up a little bit more quickly. And as you can see, I'm just cutting out triangular shapes of fondant. And then you just want to add a little bit of movement to it. So just kind of fold it or curl it and just allow it to dry in that position. You could do this step well in advance, or you could just set it to the side to set up for maybe at least 30 minutes or so. The dry times can vary, but it's not only pretty, but it's going to hide the little supports that we're going to have to hold up the lid. So it's a good idea to go ahead and just create several little pieces of the tissue paper. Okay, so I have moved my chilled cake to a pedestal, and as you remember, the cake was resting on its own cake board. And now you can see I had lined my bears up, and I'm taking them back off again and adding a straw where the head will be for each bear. That's to add just a little bit of extra support. The heads are not super heavy, but I was worried that they might sink down slightly after the cake comes to room temperature. So for me, it's best to be on the safe side. So I just added those little supports in, and then we'll add the heads back on. And there we go. You might want to tilt the head of some of the bears just for fun. I'd let the bear on the ends head tilt just slightly. And what I'm doing now is I'm taking a lollipop stick, it's extra tall, and I'm marking where I want to cut the stick later. So I wanted it to be long enough that it's going to be propping up the lid, and I want it to be tall enough that it's not going to hit the bears. So I'm actually using 2 lollipop sticks, and I'm just using that little mark I made as my guide of where to cut them. And then I'm just going to bend it back and forth. Sometimes it's easier to just bend the lollipop sticks back and forth to break them. Okay, so once they're the height that you want, and they're tall enough that the lid is not going to be hitting the bear, but it should be pretty close. Just reinsert the sticks back in, and that looks good. And we're also going to be adding some supports to the back of the cake. So just really quickly, I'm going to hold the lid down around where it would be placed, and that gives me a little mark in the back of the cake so that I know where to add those supports. I'm dampening my fondant with a little bit of water, and that again is going to make them sort of tacky and sticky. I'm using the sticky fondant as a glue, but as you'll see in a little while, I'd also decided to add some melted chocolate or melted candy coating just to be on the safe side, because we really need for the lid to adhere to these supports. Okay, so now I'm using bubble tea straws in the back. I've pushed the bubble tea straw all the way down and then trimmed it off just slightly above the surface of the cake. But I used the little mark in the frosting that I created when I applied the lid to the cake earlier as a guide, just so I would know about where the lid would be landing. And we just want to give it some extra support. And again, I'm adding that sticky fondant to the top, that slightly moistened fondant. And we're going to go back and add melted candy coating to this also. Okay, so here I am just adding sprinkles all over the top of the cake. And again, I added our little tissue paper folds of fondant, which makes a great filler. And it also helped to disguise those lollipop sticks that we added, which is really nice. And really quickly, I decided to add a bow to the center bear. So to do that, I'm just using little triangles of fondant. So just take a small ball of fondant and flatten it and kind of play with it until it's a triangular shape. And you'll just press it down into that little bit of Tylose glue that I added to the top of the bear. And then we'll add another triangle to the other side. And I'm just using the end of my paintbrush to kind of press everything down more easily. And then I'm just going to add a little ball of fondant to the center of the bow and just kind of press everything down. Okay, so it's almost time to add the lid at this point. Just make sure that your balls of fondant are really sticky on tops of your supports. So the 2 lollipop sticks in the front and then the 2 bubble tea straw supports in the back. And I'm adding some melted candy coating just for some extra insurance, because the melted chocolate candy coating does a really good job of adhering to the lid. I'm just going to add a little bit more. Just to be on the safe side. Okay, and now we are ready to put the lid on top. So just carefully place it on, and you're going to want to hold it into the position that you like it for several seconds at least, just to make sure that everything is adhering. And that gives us a nice secure bond. Make sure that it is meeting up and back with those supports on the back of the cake. And that's what our cake looks like in back. So everything looks good and it seems really secure. Okay, so our cake is finished. I think the cake turned out really cute. I love this design for young birthday parties or for a baby shower. So I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.